It's... Oh, I didn't click go live. Hey guys! I completely forgot to hit go live for some reason. And yeah, hi, Ben here from Second Dynasty. I've been babbling to myself the last 2 minutes. What? Do I have music on?
Yes.
Ugh. I'm not supposed to have that on. Sorry guys. I guess I left Spotify on in the background. I can't vouch for the music that's on. It's just my release radar for the week. But anyway, let's cut with all of that. I'm Ben from Second Dynasty. I make 3D printable starships. Have been doing this since 2017. We sell the designs. You print it yourself on your own FDM 3D printer or resin printer if you're really keen and like expensive brittle materials. But yeah, we basically, this is what we do. This is our work. And we're currently in the design phase for an upcoming campaign. We actually have one running at the moment called Operation Maelstrom. As you can see right here, if you want the link, I'm sure John will add it into the link chat or something like that. Nice to see all the people here. Hi, Aerospace Smith, that blasted Samouflage, Dalton, Tamsin, Trey Nerds. How nice are you spying on us? And of course John is in the background.
Hello, sir.
And he was there ensuring that I wasn't just going to talk to myself for the next hour. So I would have missed the streaming indicator there. So yeah, we've currently got this campaign running on all of these starfighters and aerospace vehicles, I should say. We have some really cool ones in here. Let's see. We've got the Firefly, Astrofire. These are your more like Battlestar Galactica style Viper type starfighters slash, you know, X-wingy types. We have the Spider Crab, which is a sort of fully articulated, I guess, service and recovery vehicle. Salvage and recovery vehicles, what I've written, but you know, and then the pirates might like to modify that a little bit with this nasty little saw. So yeah, check out the campaign page to see all of this. The Sting, and this is a sort of like enclosed fan helicopter design along with the Hornet. We've unlocked a ton of stretch goals already. We've got some alien craft here. And then of course the Outpost, which of course is completely modular. You can build it as big as you want. It has landing pads, it has walls. I kind of modeled it a little bit after Whiskey Outpost from Starship Troopers. Let me just disable my mail program here and my Dropbox. So I'm totally flustered today. Let's see. Sounds like John's also got stuff going on. But yeah, so we got the Outpost. Has a control tower. This could be used if you're a Traveller fan for a starport, for example. So yeah, this is just what we got running. I'm going to stop rambling on about this. A ton of different weapons, missiles, accessories for like an airfield or flight deck, and of course some miniatures to go along with it. Some crew, some pilots, all the necessities for a cool little scene. And we have started building up a little bit of lore for ourselves, kind of like exploring our own world, which will eventually feature, hopefully sometime next year, in our sort of a tabletop miniatures game, I guess you might call it. We've been operating for the last 5 years with very generic sci-fi. Not many other people are doing the sci-fi, certainly not full ships. And we want to create a game to go along with it, because you know, it doesn't quite fit with Star Wars. Some things do. It doesn't quite fit with, you know, the other games going on tabletop. There isn't a lot going on with sci-fi. So yeah, we wanted to focus on that. But chances are, since Dalton's been out there pimping the modular cutter, there's a good chance that you guys might be back looking at this stream, watching it simply because you are a Traveller fan. And now, since 2021, I want to say, we've had a Traveller license to produce official Traveller 3D printable starships in 28mm scale. We have limited resources. We've done the scout ship, the Type S Scout Courier, Murphy class. By the way, the license is mostly like T5 or Classic Traveler. We don't have a license for Mongoose. We don't have a license for GURPS or any of the other sort of iterations. So we're limited by design, but I get to interpret, and I try to bring with me my favorite versions of the designs. We did a huge, absolutely massive Beowulf based on the T5 deck plans. I think it ended up actually being closer to a 300-ton version, what I believe is called the Type AL. Beautiful ship, but we spent 8 months on it. We kind of, put ourselves a little bit into debt to get it finished. And we were like, okay, well, Traveler, we've done Starship miniatures, we've done a couple of ships. We've noticed that there are some really great dedicated fans, but maybe not as many people are able to get into 3D printing, or, it's an expensive hobby at the moment purely for the fact that, we don't have all that many people buying our stuff, so we can't, there's a certain price range we have to offer it at, and unless we get, a ton more people buying stuff, we kind of have to produce it at this level. So we're like, okay, well, it would be a real shame to let the Traveler license run out, and we only have it until 2024. It's a strong possibility that Mark Miller will be happy to renew it. I don't know. I'd like to continue reselling what we have made, but this may be the final Traveler campaign for us. And so we're like, okay, how can we do this so it makes sense, so it doesn't take 8 months of development to do a ship? And we're like, okay, well, the player ships, they're kind of a little bit out of reach at the moment. There's not enough interest to, say, do an A2 or a other 200-ton ship. That's, ignore the stomping around. It's just John.
It's just me.
I'm okay. I will survive this. John is here as I'm rambling on. So you guys can see the modular cutter, and this is, let's be nice, a utilitarian ship. It's quite ugly. It kind of looks like a conventional rocket if it was standing straight, right? That wouldn't make it look as, well, it all just looks suspicious. But the modular cutter is a very interesting design. The principle behind it is you have a 30-ton cargo container that's, can be swapped out. There's a variety of different modules. The main problem with it is that over the many, many, many editions of the Traveler role-playing game that there have been over the last 40 years, all of the deck plans are wrong in one way or another. Mostly the double deck versions have ridiculous deck plans. You could never fit anything in. There are a variety of variants, some versions which are 4.5 meters wide, others that are 6 meters wide, others that are 7.5 meters wide. And it's kind of hard to find a compromise that works for everything. But for our purposes, technically the old school Classic Traveler didn't really have deck plans for everything. It had descriptions, what's in it, and many of the illustrations didn't even represent, what was in there. So what are we basing our design on? You may be asking. Well, you might notice it's not terribly thick. If we actually take off the top, let's see, I think we need to add a few new objects to that layer. I'll just show you what I've been working on. If we take the top off, you can kind of see that it is based on a actually that's the cargo container module. It's got a lower floor. So the floor is 1, 2, 3 1.5 meter squares, otherwise known as an inch at 28mm scale. So it's approximately the same scale as D&D miniatures traditionally have been. I am familiar that Traveler has a 15mm scale that it's used before. Personally, I found it a bit small, and the beauty is if you stick a smaller nozzle on your printer, you can actually print at 15mm these designs just by scaling them down to 54%, and you will also save about, it will be about a quarter of the materials. So also a quarter of the material costs. So yeah, I'm going on and on. I haven't actually gotten to a point where I can read the chat just yet. I understand that these designs are not for everyone. I personally have had a hard time embracing the design, you might say. But there's a certain logic to this. We've gone with the 3 square wide variation because we can do a ton of auxiliary vehicles, otherwise known as small craft in Traveller. We can do alternative fronts, basically keep the modular design. But if we open up my workshop, there is a ton of different variants that I worked with. I explored the 4-inch variant. We have bits of our Beowulf here for scale. This is the back of the Beowulf, a considerably larger ship, as you can see. The modular cutter is quite long. But yeah, we tried a variety of different widths, looking at the cargo modules. The beauty of the one we've gone with, it's 3 inches at its widest point. Slightly larger actually, but the interior volume is more or less exactly 2 d-tons per inch of like if you did a slice. So we know then that from here to here, that's 1.5 meters by let's see, by 4.5 meters wide, and in a cylinder. So if you worked it all out, the interior volume comes to about 14 and a half cubic meters for that. So times 2 rather. So yeah, it's mathematically a sensible shape. Now, there are other options. We could do variants where we make the actual container a little bit bigger. But the original modular cutters sort of came designed, some of them, to fit into the mercenary cruiser. And we wanted something that could, in theory, actually fit into that kind of a space. So, why we've chosen that, we have some flexibility with the actual module on the end, so we could have, you know, something that looks more like a space truck, our own sort of designs. We can have something that's a little bit more aerodynamic, something that's a little bit more sort of like Boeing or Airbus style. Very, very early experiments here, but the design lends itself to modularity, hence the name. And there are a lot of variants that are just longer or shorter with alternative modules. So it's like, as far as designs go for the Traveller license, this is probably the only decent one where we can spend more like 1 to 2 months on the design rather than 8, and not get just one ship, but a huge variety of different ones. And then obviously having the various different modules, this is a great opportunity to have like stretch goals in the Kickstarter campaign. So that's our thinking. This is the final hurrah for now anyway, unless we drastically increase our numbers of Traveller backers. I don't think we'll be doing any more Traveller ships after that. We'll see. But yeah, I also want to kind of get back to doing original designs as well. That will work with Traveller. So we'll try and keep that in mind. Maybe we'll build it out with this sort of stats in mind, like as far as the ship tonnage goes. But we'll be able to offer something that is compatible with, but not necessarily, you know, these old designs that tend not to match up between the 3D space and the 2D deck plans. All right, let's have a read of some of the comments you guys have been saying, so I'm not just completely talking to myself. Then we can properly explore what we've got. At the moment, we're just looking for a visualization, because hopefully at some point this afternoon, I'm going to hear back from Kickstarter that I can have a live campaign page to get this with a set date, so people can start reserving, is the idea. So let's see. Sounds like John's got stuff going on the floor. It did sound a bit bumpy. Let's see. I'm guessing Aerospace Smith is convincing people that the cutter is a great choice. The utility of the ships on the game table, they are too large and specific to be used in a large variety of scenarios. I would say that depends on the ship and the size of your table. Last week it was a very early idea. Oh, okay. You were commenting. Shooting Star was saying yes. Last week was the very, very basics of the ships. You can see I've done a lot of paneling. I don't know exactly how much more time I put into it. The inside of the ship is still very much like there's no detail whatsoever. There's no mechanical functioning aside from we have designed the airlock doors to work like this. The idea being that you want it docked at certain times with different ships, and this would let you open the door without it being an issue. So that's kind of our compromise. We can't do very much about orientation. I did make it slightly wider than usual so you could more easily crawl out. I think it would actually be easier to have some kind of docking converter or something like that on the mothership, as it were. Let's see. Something like the cutter and cargo containers are more useful as terrain. You can use them more often than a larger ship. Yes, that's true. Like the smaller version of the launch, and I'm having very early ideas. I think this is a small enough design that this isn't the launch. This is like a ship's boat, I think, in length. The launch would basically be getting rid of like from here to here, this cabin size, and it would be basically just be a cabin and engine sort of situation. That becomes quite reasonable as, the Beowulf takes about 6 weeks to print. 5 kilos of plastic, or rather PLA, which is actually not made of oil. It's made from corn. Is it cornstarch?
It's just corn.
Yeah.
Plastic.
It's just made from corn. So it is technically biodegradable under certain conditions, but not really ones that usually are reached, although, temperatures are increasing. Let's see. I can see some agreements. So it's a bigger bridge as opposed to a Y connector. It looks like you're talking about... okay, so these different modules you guys are discussing... Oh, that looks good, John. Yes. Very good. All right, nice. We'll tell you more about that soon. Well done, John.
Thank you, sir.
John is showing me a mechanical part that works more as intended now. And that's with the wing on, right?
Yeah.
All the full weight.
Full weight.
Great.
On one.
Yeah.
This is just a test of one. I'm going to do the 2 now.
Oh yeah, it'll be even stronger. Brilliant. Okay, so I'm just trying to catch up in the chat here. Sorry for all the distractions. Here's an actual question. Second, from that blasted camouflage. Second Dynasty, have you ever considered making Second Dynasty setting using the Traveller RPG rules? Much like you could say, find a licensed property for D&D, but for Traveller. It's something I considered. And I like the customization of the ships, but my ships are kind of more specific than that. And I don't know. I have considered it. I've certainly used them in my Traveller games before. I've used Traveller as a base and infected it with other influences of mine that my players weren't familiar with. It's something to consider. And then back to the cutter, I still say having some modules arranged around on a table can make a great settlement. Yes, it could. And in fact, some of the modules were for setting up like starports and whatnot. So, since last week, we have taken this design quite a bit further. So, last week I think we had paneling on the front. The cylinder was basically had no detail whatsoever. The rear of the ship also didn't have much detail. I think this windowed area here had no windows in yet, and it was up the front. And I moved it up the back, and the idea being that I've kind of been taking an amalgamation of different eras of Traveller art, but black and white art. So I've been looking at the art of GURPS Traveller and Classic Traveller, mostly. Especially the broadsword, mercenary cruiser booklet, the front of the small craft book from Classical Traveller. And there it really seems like the cabin module of the modular cutter is towards the back. So that's what I based it off on, and I think the art I shared last week too as well, which is based on the GURPS Traveller. So it's more a look, but not the interior. Most deck plans actually are 4 to 5 inches wide. Ours is only 3. As you can see, it turns out being quite long. But this actually lines up really, really well with the classic Traveller art. So if you look at the very earliest classic Traveller art of the modular cutter, it is just this long rocket shape. And I don't know, I think it looks slightly less offensive. Maybe with a shorter engine at the back. I don't know, there was something just... Yeah, I don't know. It's an odd shape. Or it's not an odd shape, it's just it's a phallic shape. And, you know, that happens with... I don't want to get too Jeff Bezos with it. So we've got a 4-engine rear at the moment. Technically, it should just be some kind of grav pad at the back. I think most engines in Traveller illustrations probably don't really represent the technology very well. So yeah, I think it's coming along well. I've inserted this sort of ladder. Dalton and I have discussed how you get from one end of the ship to the other, and during flight we kind of just agreed that, like, rather than having the crawl space up in here, you would just have to EVA it. These are only meant for short flights, really, in the same system. Maximum of a couple of days. So you have the bare necessities in the cab. I think I showed this off last time. Still need to put some windows in and some semiotics here, but let's take the roof off actually. So looking down into the cabin, let's see, I always forget the deselect Alt D. So looking at the cabin here, we've got the windows on. There's actually a cavity I've left here for like a bed, so that I'm kind of like thinking of a trucker's cab, right? So you've got place for a driver and, you know, a passenger or co-pilot in this case, and you might work shifts. One of them is on, one of them is off. The other one sort of just has a little curtain here and goes to bed down there. You've got a fresher that's also in the life support module. And other than that, you've kind of got this connecting area. And assuming that the cargo isn't chock-a-block full and you can actually move through it, that would be a possibility. The containers are there at the moment to illustrate how many you could fit in. There's plenty more room for standard containers, but I think on this kind of ship you would honestly have form-fitting containers. You can see that the floor also drops a little bit. So the other option that I was thinking of is that you actually have maybe an auxiliary crawl space in here. Just something that in an emergency could be used, so maybe having a hatch in the floor here where you could access it, but it only essentially works during when a module's attached. And then in the back section it's meant to have more cabin space. I think in most deck plans I've seen it has just seats for passengers, not an actual cabin. And then you have your engine section. And actually we can add a few of these back to the top layer so we can see into the sort of areas. I don't know if this is, we can put this on the top as well. So yeah, the module itself has one airlock door. We have a second airlock towards the back. I've just added this ladder in. I need to add some ladder rungs to the top of this thing. But yeah, just some handholds here that don't look like they're going to impact too much with the aerodynamics. Not that it matters. That's the thing with Traveller ships, is technically they're closer to Star Wars ships. They use anti-gravity or gravity repulsors basically to attract or repulse themselves from celestial body to celestial body, and then they use jump drives for interstellar travel, which of course these ships do not have. So we can recycle a fair bit of cabin material from our Beowulf and Type S. You know, we didn't have to remodel seats or anything like that. Although I might replace the current seats that we have with the fancier seats from... well, I don't know. Maybe we'll do something slightly different, but...
One more.
Yeah, I've done a bit of exploring the design. We have what will be the sort of garage door approach. I don't think it'll be a garage door in the end, but it might function in the same way as the airlocks, where it just slides up into the ceiling. And this is also a reason why we may need to rethink a little bit. I just want this to be large enough that you can get a container out through it. So you can see here that would fit, right, when it's up. So that's the goal anyway. And you can see there that like it comes down to about a 2-inch floor. Now let's see. Those starport modules would just be cool to link up to the current Operation Maelstrom base. It would actually fill it out quite a nice little bit. If that is the case, I think it could be really nice, and really nice theme for the Cutter campaign. Not only for a ship, but enough to have a settlement. See, the thing is, for the campaign itself, I kind of have to need to be visualizing it now, because we want to have a period of about 3 months to pick up interest. So we'll launch probably in mid to late September, end in October. After that, I'd really like to go home to Australia, because I haven't been for 3.5 years. But during that campaign, we would relaunch some of our older ships. I've already shown on our media, our social, updates and whatnot, that I have updated the Type S landing gear, so it's a lot more print friendly now, with the lessons learned from Beowulf and whatnot. So people that maybe weren't considering a 3D printer, 3 years ago when we were first getting in on the Type S campaign, might have changed their mind now. It's quite approachable. Are you alright, John?
Everything is wonderful, sir. Hello, everyone. Let's be friends.
They can't see you. They can't see you. They might be able to see you now.
It's too late. Friendship was the limited time offer.
The BBC would like to apologise. Yeah, I don't know what the running around is all about, but it's always funny to see John in a fluster.
Secrets.
Secrets is the answer. So, at the moment, we only have some concepts. There are some design issues we need to think about. Although, these are not super important in the concept stage. At the moment, what we need is that lovely render to put on the image for the page when we're collecting, sign-ups, basically, to say that you're interested. And, obviously the stream too, I think Dalton shared it around in some Facebook groups for Traveller fans who are trying to drum up a little bit of interest. And it is nice to get some feedback too. Let's see. Is there a fairing to connect to wider diameter modules? I mean, it will be technically possible. It will just mean that it won't be a perfect... I think it'll be a case of you have an alternative part for that. Mark Miller actually suggested using a Coke can. Of course, they come in completely different sizes depending on what part of the world you're from. Our cans are probably closer to 3 inches in diameter. Oh, it's nice to have a drink on occasion. Let's see. Imagine having a... sorry, I should be saying who's saying these things. So, Shuragal says... Imagine having a cutter arranged as a temporary storefront for a larger freighter in orbit as well. Either to dock with a high port or come down to a colony. Yeah, I mean, that'd be kind of funny. Or you could take a launch and turn it into like a mobile eatery or something, but planet side, I guess. Michael Tenery says, you have done good work. Everyone needs time to recharge and reset. It makes for better things later. Hope you get a good vacation. Well, I am going to take a little bit of time off too in about 3 weeks' time when John's heading back to the US. So I will get a little bit of time to recharge then / work on other things. A Justice Tordiason says, like the Chinese food shop from the beginning. That's exactly what I was thinking of. The Chinese shop from the beginning of The Fifth Element in New York, or New York, or whatever they're calling it. And Tamsin says, don't forget to include heads/freshers for passenger modules, maybe a small kitchenette as well. So there will be. I'd say that this area is just going to be mirrored from the front, so there'll be a fresher in there, or alternatively on this side, and then we'll have some passenger seats in there for the base model, and you can kind of customize it then, right? So basically, we use an insert system here. I don't know how we're going to attach it this time around. I'm thinking maybe we use more of like a ring system with the floors built in. I'm not entirely sure yet. John has designed some new clips so we can fit them in a much smaller space. We might need to use more of them. I don't know. It's going to be in the prototyping phase, and that phase will be probably in very early. Well, probably be at mid-August or something like that. It's quite a quick turnaround. I'd like to kind of have some kind of prototype of at least a launch before I go into holidays. So we'll see what happens. Let's see. That Blasted Samurai Flange says, fresher should be the airlock. You don't wash your hands, you get space. If you don't wash your hands, you get space. I'm sure John would be down with that.
I accept this.
Townsend says, did anyone else get the YouTube ad just then when Ben started reading out my comment? Oh, I might have accidentally turned ads on for that section. Sorry, I'll make sure that's off for next time. Anders Lerka says, me. As in getting the ad, I think. So yeah, I'm guessing Dalton might have a YouTube Premium, in which case you wouldn't see the ads. I don't really think about it anymore either because I've had it on for a couple of years now. Alrighty, so I've rambled on for about half an hour now, which is about standard fare. So I'm going to do a little bit more work on the actual cabin. Now, in practice, this might not seem all that sensible, but the initial starting cabin is what we're going to be using on all of our ships here. I don't know if I'll have time to do some variants either, but I'd like to kind of work on a launch. Let's see. So if I were to go here and search for small craft and traveler, I would probably get a lot of different images up of many different small craft. But the particular image I'm thinking of, let's see if I have this one. It's very, very small for some reason. Let's see, not that one, not that one, not that one. This is off on my second screen, by the way, so I apologize in advance. Yeah, the more I sort of like study up on Traveller, the more I kind of feel like it's a little bit silly to try and build something that fits the existing deck plans. It's more a case of like, let's look at the stats. Here we go. This is a good image. Oh, it's totally small. I think Dalton gave me a version of it, but I can't remember where it was. So okay, I'm not gonna. I think I've only got the small, tiny image, so I apologize in advance for this, but I think this is what we've got to work with. Click on this, move it over there. We have our tiny little small craft. I will try to zoom in a little bit, but I think in practice it's like, it is what it is. It's very blurry. So here you have the modular cutter, but just pretend it's longer and thinner. But you can see that the launch, the 20-ton launch, that's what we were looking at before. The 30-ton ship's boat, the 40-ton pinnace, they're all based on, yes, I said pinnace. It's not what you thought I said, but it does sound giggly. So they're all based on the same thing and have slightly different nose shapes, but it's very, very slightly. And in this case, it's like a case of we could literally take, say, some of these parts. This is the point at which the dome stretches, right? We can isolate this, move it back into the base area, that is to say, in line with here. And then I don't think this one is properly on the grid. The reason I'm thinking is because there's not a gap there, so let's just test this. Oh, it's not anyway. Okay, let's move it back. But yeah, we can just scale it, and say we scale this. Let me turn my snapping on. Hang on a second. So I'm going to turn step snapping on to relative, and we've got 5% at a time. So let's just increase this 5, 10. Let's see, that's 20%, 25%. So 25% longer. You can see that we can get rid of this elongated. Sorry, we can elongate the dome. So let's see, we want it there somewhere. And again, we do the same thing to 25%, which would be 1.25 if you're looking more closely. And just that in itself alters the shape. Now, it's not perfect. Like, you can see that this is not all the same width. But we can actually go into the inner shell and modify it a little bit too. I would say we'd go even further. So let's just go as crazy as... why is it saying that? So let's go as crazy as 40%. Actually 50%. So all of a sudden, this shape takes on a much less rounded shape, but can fit for our other designs. And it's stretched, sure, but it doesn't look like outrageously stretched. So we would be able to just alter the cockpit interior a little bit without it looking horrible. And then, you know, sort of iterate on this. So you've got a couple of different shapes. I guess I'd better get the top bit as well. Let's see, go out to there. We've got a light in here, so that's why it's doing this. And then we just want to make sure that that has its pivot point back here, so we can get it to the same point. Is that it, or is it one more? No, that was it, I think. So yeah, and the final piece. Let's move that back there. Whoops. So yeah, again, not perfect, but you can really see that that shape actually makes a lot of difference, and it looks a lot more bullet shaped then. And I kind of like that. And we can do this in such a way, I've designed it in such a way that, you know, the features aren't looking too ridiculous. So just with this simple method, we can create a variety of shapes. It's not quite as easy to do more like a Boeing front, and it does require rearranging the cockpit. So I don't know how many times I'd actually want to do this, but my point is you can create some interesting shapes with that front nose and actually with the engine section, and have considerably different designs. Now, if we go back to this, you know, these designs here, you can see this one has like these swing wings, so we could actually attach that alternative rear with the wings and turn this into like a shuttle. I think a shuttle's meant to be much bigger, but you know, I'm trying to show off what you can do with this design and why it makes sense for us at the moment. And as you can see, like, we changed just a few little things here. This might want to get lengthened as well. What was it? 1.5 to something like that. It's far from perfect. That really doesn't look good. So there are different options you can do. Oh, that was 1.6. Let's see, that's 1.52. Let's see, 1.5 is what we want. So yeah, it's within the boundaries that I think a lot of people would find this relatively acceptable as a sort of design element. But yeah, for such a quick and dirty design, it's not. I say quick and dirty, but like the cylindrical shape and the modularity. Yes, the form is really annoying to work with because of the shape, but compared to, you know, the Beowulf, which has that very, I guess, conical front that's sort of rounded at the tip, and it's a very difficult shape to work with, you know, to cut out the cockpit. The Type S as well, maybe a little bit easier, but, you know, would have been even easier if, like, the angles were chosen at a point where, you know, it mathematically can be duplicated at a certain size. Let's see. Lots of comments here. Let's see. Let's see. Tamsin says the shuttle in Classic / LBB is 95 D-ton. Yeah, so it would be quite a bit longer, but in this case we could just make it longer, add some wings to the back, etc. Justice says, so this is a Traveller Chimera? Kind of, except a much smaller one in that case. And yeah, if we did want to go for the modules, right, so that they were 4 inches instead, I think we have our 4-inch workshop here. It's something like this one, I think. It needs to be, yeah, this is with the floor sunken down for the containers. But if we put it up, we would reach the midpoint. Let's see. The midpoint would be 4 inches, right? So if we just grabbed these and moved it over, you can kind of see the size difference. But we could just create some kind of adapter so that, you know, these can actually join together with a sort of like funnel-like shape. And that could be, you know, a way to adapt things so that you could potentially have a larger modular cuddle module, but the actual engine section and that would be smaller. And that could create a more interesting shape. So I'm kind of interested in seeing what we can do with the design to give it a sort of modern reinterpretation. I already kind of like the bullet front of this version. I don't think it would pose many printing issues. Let's see. Looking at this structure on the inside, it's about as complicated as the regular version is, so I'd say we're good for that. I still need to figure out how the windows are going to fit in. Normally we don't do the windows, we just leave them blank, but in this case we probably would make cutout versions. So that's kind of encouraging that was so easy to do without it looking terrible. I just don't like these lines here at the moment, so maybe we wouldn't lengthen them as much. Maybe we would go 1.4 or something like that. And yeah, you need to obviously adapt these things so it looks good, or we just have a different design altogether for that particular part, and that helps us iterate, but also I'd probably be more excited if I could see more versions of this. We could probably get it to a point where it kind of looks like a commercial airliner or something like that, but like a rocket version. Let's see. Osmardi says PLP, but I'm not quite sure what that means. No5803 says the shape of the cockpit could correlate with seats in the cockpit, so elongated would be a 3 to 4 seater and the standard would be 2 seats. I agree with that. I think that's a great idea. So essentially you would have the cockpit being moved further forward. But this does kind of require more shaping and a bit more room, and yeah, this would probably let us have let's see, these aren't added to the layer yet. So yeah, we'd have to move this forward more. You don't want to change the shape of the control panel, but you can have like one chair up here, right? And then another one back here. Something like that. So yeah, you got your double seated version. I kind of like that. And then you can fit a double bed under there instead. It's the family. It's the family version, the Winnebago. Let's see. Michael Tenery says, I'm going to print as many variants as possible with this. I think I will even make a few damaged ones to mimic crash sites. This is a much more tenable design. So the actual launch, or like the 20-ton launch, this sort of thing, is quite comparable to a Shuttle Alpha. I would have to import it in to double check, but I'd say a Shuttle Alpha is from like here to there. So you're probably looking at a print time of, you know, a matter of days rather than weeks. Let's see. Any chance for damaged versions? No problem if not. No, the general consensus is it's just too much work when you're working by hand to do those things. It's actually far more efficient to actually print it as is and then damage it with tools, essentially, than what it is to for me to sit there for weeks. We've done a ghost ship before where we added damage, and that was great to work on as a one-off, but it was rather a nightmare to get working. And when you're working with FDM2, you've got to think about the orientation of the parts. Let's see. Will we get docking clamps add-on to the dock this outside of the Chimera? I don't know about docking clamps, but I was thinking that we would have a stretch goal, which is essentially simulating, you know, a docking tiles, essentially. So if you wanted to do a larger ship with a layout with our Starship, the Next Generation tiles, you could have a section of that ship where you could park a modular cutter. And it would align. That's the idea anyway, and everything I've done with this thing has been kind of focused around the idea that you could yeah, do that sort of thing. So let's see. Eric Anderson says, hello Eric, you're late but not too late, and you can always watch it back. Justa says, to Michael Tenery, I end up using my misprints as damaged versions. And yeah, I think that is also a good way to go. Dalton says, ships larger than 50 D-tons would need a 6-ton bridge versus the current 3-ton bridge. Sure. I'm not that...
I do not care, says John. This is John's personal opinion.
Yeah, John does not care on that, and I mean, yeah, what is a bridge, anyway? So I think it's just a case of lengthening things a little bit, like making an even more elongated front section, or just adding an extra. God, it's so weird that I keep saying inches, where it really 1.5 meters, but using the inches kind of makes it even worse in the when discussing such objects as these. So yeah, despite the fact that we've got what we need for a render, really, and I'm wondering do you guys think I should leave this nose in as a demonstration of like the variants when we're making that sort of render for small craft? Should I let's poll this. Let's see.
You want me to make a poll?
I'm making a poll. That's fine.
Okay.
Should we leave the modified nose as an option? And that's just a yes or no. So I will ask the community. So this poll is really just about, should we leave this very rough, very quick and dirty version that I just, literally used some tools to scale it in one direction to make it a little bit more conical. Should we leave that in as a demo of what should be possible, despite the way it currently looks? Or should we ditch it and maybe approach it again when we're actually doing the final product.
I'm the only no vote.
Haha. Yeah, what a shock, John. You don't get to vote. What? I guess you do. Wait. I'm being attacked! Well, okay, you're not the only no, though. There are actually 11% of people are no. Out of 18 votes. Wow, we've got 18 active participants in the chat. That's great to see.
One person agrees with me. That person is correct.
Anyway. Well, John, did you just log in a second time?
Yes.
All right. Let's see. What is the game series sort of for the increase? I think it's just a rule set in different Traveller rules. So, that blasted Samafine says, I'm confused as to why a larger ship needs a bigger bridge. It's just the rules. That's the thing. And I guess, you know, the rules do eventually fall apart, but, you know, we'll try and honor them as much as we can. We're also trying to fit ships into different editions, right? And the modular cutter, although it's a different size in Mongoose Traveller, it's still close enough that I can see it being more representative and more useful. And the fact that you can print it out in like 5 or 6 days instead of 6 weeks, right? And, you know, accordingly, it's probably only going to be about 1 kilo versus 5 and all of that jazz. Means that, you know, it's a more practical ship to have on the table. And the fact that you can have sort of the modules separate, the modules will have legs. So they'll have their own sort of, I haven't added it yet. All we're going to do with the landing gear probably is, let's see if I grab this. Actually, I'm just going to duplicate this and deselect all other objects here. So basically all I'm thinking is that we have a landing gear that's folded up that you can't see. You won't actually see it because we're not going to have a functional landing gear, but essentially it will, this hatch will just come open a little bit and rotate a little bit up like that, and you'll have just little feet that come out essentially. I don't know if we'll open it in 2 places or something like that, but yeah, we're not going to make it overly complicated. It's going to be very simplistic. It's not needed for this visualization. So again, we haven't done that much detail on the bottom, and I still need to mechanically figure out how this is going to hook up. The key goal here is to just make something aesthetically that looks like it's going to fit with what we want to do for the campaign, to give an idea about the small craft. And I might even like add in the background like the Beowulf or the Type S or that sort of thing, since we are planning to, you know, resell those things to people that are coming in at a later date, maybe didn't have the opportunity to pick it up before, and you know, we can offer the Kickstarter version for a reduced price rather than having to pick it up at current market costs. So let's see. Dalton says to Justice, the original game design had the stuff not listed but needed added to the volume assigned to the bridge, i.e. sensors, life support, etc. So ships have bridges based on size. So really it is like life support, sensors and that sort of thing in the computers, I guess, all contained in the area. So the bridge is not just the controls in that case, I guess. It's like a bunch of other systems. And really if we look at what is included in our 3-ton bridge, which would essentially be like these 6 squares here, and a little bit at the front really, so we'll disinclude the airlock here, is you've got that life support. You've got sensors at the front. I don't know how healthy it is to sleep right next to the sensors, but I'm guessing that in the far-flung future that they've got some kind of blockers so that you're, you know, not frying your giblies or anything. Let's see. larger ships need... Tamsin says, larger ships need larger bridges because they have more bridge crew. The bridge also covers all of the control equipment for the ship. Bigger ships need more of that. Yep. Okay, so obviously Tamsin is also a big Traveller fan as well. Can we get a stick-on landing gear with a magnet in each part? Magnets? No. I've always had the design principle of it's glueless, it's magnetless. Anything that requires a third product, the exception has been optional light kits.
Support rods.
And support rods, yeah, which are also optional. Yeah. So we prefer not to have anything that requires any third-party content. It creates an extra issue. Even the light kits over the years, we've had a lot of issues with, third parties think that it's us producing it. We haven't communicated it. If it doesn't arrive for them, it's our frustration to deal with as well as the, third party and whatnot. It's a level of complication that we prefer not to have. What we are looking into is the possibility of maybe getting the very smallest launch or something like that. See what options we have for some kind of physical option. But it's just an idea. It might make it a little bit more accessible to other people. I don't know. So, it looks like most of these comments are about all of this bridge comparison. I'm liking the comparison of a cutter to a C-130, mass-produced, used forever, and rigged into endless variations. Yeah, basically. Yeah, so, okay, it looks like all of these comments are basically the same.
Mine isn't.
What, yours is just the neato yellow blocks of cheese.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, well...
Where'd you get them from? I want one.
Well, they're quite large blocks of cheese, and they're from Alpha Ceti 5.
Ooh, can we go there after lunch?
No.
After the stream?
It could be Alpha Ceti 6.
Okay.
They could be little brainworms.
I want to go get some fondue.
You want to get fondue?
Yes.
Well, that's an interesting note to leave things on. We are going to wrap things up a little bit, but since I've got so many new people here, I'd like to shill one last time our campaign, Operation Maelstrom. We are quite close to unlocking a brand new variant. Where did it go? Let's see. Oh, I'm scrolling down. Look at all the stuff you get in the all-in and the stretch goals we've unlocked. We've actually got 2 new things coming. One is the Arrow Mark II, which our tribe's members have already gotten their hands on. The other is this bad boy right here, the Scorpion gunship variant. So I know these designs aren't for everyone, but they make great grav flyers, great ancillary vehicles. We have a bunch of really cool add-ons. If nothing else, it's a really great deal at this point. So check it out if you haven't. I'm sure John's posted the link there. Check it out, and we'd be very grateful for your support if it's something of interest to you. So, with that said, it looks like we are very close to 4 o'clock on the dot. We stream every Friday, although things might be starting to get a little bit tight at the moment due to the fact that my wife's work is getting very busy at the moment, and I'm going to be spending more time watching our dog Bailey, who can't be alone. So, yeah, guys, thanks for joining me. It's nice to see so many new people. If you want to follow our follow our progress as we build these designs, by all means, like and subscribe to the channel so that you are notified when we go live. So, thank you guys for joining me. Thank you, John, for your contributions, standing on the side here and freaking me out and, performing all of the same duties that really Alvin would be doing otherwise. Ooh. See you guys next week. Thanks for joining us. Bye, guys.